Tonight, a lone attacker. New details on the man behind the New Orleans rampage. Resilience in reopening, but also unbelievable grief.
His beautiful face, his laugh, I love you, Mom. You know, he was just a wonderful son.
And no link to the Vegas truck bomb, but what happened moments before the blast. Two families in two provinces mourn after intimate partner violence.
It's just heartbreaking because I don't know how we're going to explain this to the kids.
Plus, a former cabinet minister becomes the latest Liberal who won't run again.
Lower the number of new immigrants.
Also cutting back on immigration, the changing rules in the year ahead.
The number one question is, how can I stay here?
And the CEOs making the average Canadian salary in a day.
They earn too much money.
The worrying wage gap between the bosses and everyone else.
Really? Like, really?
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Mirella Fernandez.
Good evening. The FBI says the man who carried out the terror attack in New Orleans acted alone. Shamsuddin Jabbar killed 14 people when he rammed a truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street New Year's Day. CTV's Mike LeCouture tonight with the update on the investigation.
In a show of defiance, Bourbon Street reopened to the public 36 hours after the terrorist attack, albeit with increased security. Police were also out in force before the Sugar Bowl at the Superdome. A moment of silence was held before kickoff as the college football game was postponed by a day in the wake of the attack. Investigators compare the last 24 hours to assembling a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, sorting through hundreds of leads, video, and evidence collected from multiple scenes.
We do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack is involved in this attack except for Shamsuddin Jabbar.
FBI agents say there is unreleased surveillance video showing Jabbar placing improvised explosive devices in coolers on and near Bourbon Street just hours before he drove his truck into pedestrians, killing 14 people and injuring dozens more. They also say he rented the truck in Houston 2 days earlier and recorded a number of videos on his way to New Orleans, pledging allegiance to ISIS.
Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers, end quote.
The FBI is also categoric that there is no link between the New Orleans attack and the explosion of a Cybertruck outside Trump Tower in Las Vegas. They did say the man inside the vehicle was a highly decorated soldier who fatally shot himself before the vehicle exploded.
Looking into exactly what the motivation is remains our number one priority.
Meantime, victims of the New Orleans attack are being remembered by family, including the parents of 25-year-old Matthew Tenedorio.
His beautiful face, his laugh, I love you, Mom. You know, he was just a wonderful son.
Officials in New Orleans are trying to reassure residents and tourists that security will be stepped up as the city hosts the Super Bowl in February and then annual Mardi Gras celebrations in March. Mirella?
Mike, thanks for the update. One of the survivors of that attack is sharing his story tonight. Jeremy Sensky was in his wheelchair when he heard a commotion.
I heard a massive noise and I thought that something fell. And I turned around, and when I turned around, that's pretty much all that I remembered until I was on the ground. I was laying on the ground and I saw all my wheelchair parts on the ground beside me. Somebody came.
He broke both of his legs, but Sensky says he's just glad he's alive. And the brother of the suspect also spoke to media today. He's stunned, saying what happened is completely outside of his character. Police in New York say a shooting outside of a nightclub in Queens that injured 10 people is not considered an act of terror. Several men fired around 30 shots into a group of people and then fled the scene. Investigators say the crowd was celebrating the life of a teenager killed last year. Those who were injured are expected to survive. Those who knew Anya Kaminsky are remembering her tonight. The elementary school teacher and her father were killed on the weekend in Calgary. CTV's Mason DePatie tonight with what a family member says may have led to their murders.
33-year-old Anna Kaminsky and her father, 71-year-old Stanislaw Wardzala, were killed on Sunday night, with police saying they were murdered by Anya's husband. She's now being remembered as a caring elementary teacher, a loving mother, and a dearly missed friend.
If it wasn't for her, honestly, I wouldn't be the man I am today. She helped me a lot in my life. I mean, without her, I was lost.
Anna's brother, Peter Wardzala, says she was with her husband, Benedict Kaminsky, for 7 years, but the relationship was at times rocky. He believes the killings were sparked by an incident at Christmas dinner, which led to Anna wanting to separate from her husband permanently.
There was a little family argument, and that kind of, for her, was the last straw.
Anya leaves behind 3 young children, Kazio, Kalinka, and Katsper, the oldest 6 years of age. Peter says they'll now live with him and his mother, also widowed in the tragedy.
It's just heartbreaking because I don't know how we're going to explain this to the kids.
Peter believes his father was shot after Kaminsky killed his sister.
He was a great family man, Him and my mom came to Canada to leave Poland to have a better life for, me and my sister once we were born. He honestly he was the backbone of the family.
As of Wednesday afternoon, a GoFundMe page in support of the family had raised nearly $2,000.
To see the outpour and, what has been accumulated so far is I have no words for it. It's unbelievable.
Peter says all of the money raised will go to the children and making their lives as normal as possible. Mason DePatie, CTV News, Calgary.
And we have another similar case of intimate partner violence to tell you about tonight. This one in Halifax, police investigating the death of a 40-year-old woman along with her 73-year-old father.
Upon arrival, officers located a vehicle with a deceased female inside as well as an unresponsive male.
The 2 victims had been shot. Police later found the body of a man who was in a relationship with the woman and whose death is being investigated as a possible suicide. Police are not looking for any other suspects. The sheriff's office in Salt Lake City, Utah, says it has recovered the body of a Quebec man who died in an avalanche. 38-year-old David Etier was on the mountainside on Saturday when he was buried by an avalanche. The rescue operation began Sunday after he was reported missing. A passerby also found his dog and spotted his car. Heavy snow initially impeded the search. A heavy dose of winter weather on the way for millions of Canadians. Eastern Canada getting these squalls and extreme snow, but it will be warmer on the West Coast. Here's CTV's Allison Bamford with details.
The first major snowfall of the year packed a punch.
This is a lot of snow all at once.
Snow squalls slammed parts of southern Ontario under winter warnings.
Good thing for four-wheel drive, I tell you that.
Places like Orillia could see up to 60 centimeters of snow by tomorrow morning.
And the winds are going to also pick up, and so there's going to be a lot of treachery in terms of driving, blowing, drifting snow, wind chills that are uncomfortable.
Officials are warning of near whiteout conditions, slippery roads and collisions. But for skiers and snowboarders near Sudbury, this week's fresh powder is welcome news.
It's like the only time I'm ever outside and it feels so nice.
Winter weather alerts continue east. Parts of Newfoundland and Labrador could see it all this weekend. Heavy rain, snow, and strong winds. But head south and you'll wonder where winter is. New Brunswick's mild, melting conditions feel more like spring.
We don't like to see the grain.
Environment Canada says winter will come eventually. A polar vortex is expected to settle in over the eastern half of the country by next week, likely sticking around for most of the month.
It's like the bully, the weather bully on the weather map. I mean, it just absolutely grabs hold and doesn't leave.
On the prairies, it's already cold, 10 degrees below normal. Friday's forecasted high, a frigid -27 in Saskatoon, had skaters taking advantage of the sunshine today.
When you keep moving, you don't feel the cold.
-27, I think it's too bad. Like, -20 is good. I think I like it.
But there is good news. If we can make it through the rest of this month, we could expect warmer than normal temperatures in February and March. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
There's a cold wind blowing through the ranks of the Liberal Party. Another high-profile MP is calling it quits. Former Cabinet Minister Marco Mendicino says he won't run for re-election. Another blow to Justin Trudeau, who has been facing calls to resign as leader for months. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
Good morning. 4 years after being elected, Marco Mendicino was promoted to Immigration Minister in 2019. Then in 2021, he became the Minister of Public Safety during the Freedom Convoy. His rising star fell in 2023, dropped from cabinet after being caught off guard by the prison transfer of Paul Bernardo to a medium security facility.
It is very clear that I should have been briefed at the time.
In his resignation letter, Mendicino was clear about his source of frustration. I have disagreed with the current direction of the federal government on our foreign policy vis-a-vis our deteriorated relations with the State of Israel, our inadequate handling of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and our enfeebled role in the Middle East. In his statement, he made a point of thanking Liberal MPs and former cabinet colleagues, a city councillor, his staff, and members of his riding association, but did not thank the Prime Minister. Justin Trudeau said he would take the holidays to consider his next move, but the calls for him to step down have grown deafening since former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland quit cabinet in mid-December. A majority of caucus members from across Canada have notified the Prime Minister's office and the Liberal Party directors that they want Trudeau to prorogue government and hold a leadership race.
Time is of the essence, and if something is to happen, or anything is to happen, we need to come to a landing soon so that we can get on, with the business of government.
Hardy and now Mendicino are among at least 16 Liberal incumbents who won't run again. Of 343 positions, the party only has confirmed nominees in 132 ridings. If the Prime Minister does not prorogue the House, the government could fall in a few short weeks. The Conservatives, the NDP, and the Bloc are all vowing to vote non-confidence once parliamentarians return at the end of the month. Morella.
Judy Trin in Ottawa. Immigration is one of many hot-button issues the Liberals have been grappling with. This year, Ottawa is slashing the number of immigrants being accepted to Canada by 20%. And about half the people expected to get permanent resident status are already living here. CTV's Rachel Aiello reports.
Lower the number of new immigrants coming into Canada.
In an effort to relieve pressure on housing and social services, Canada is cutting back. In 2025, the target is 395,000 permanent residents, decreasing further in the 2 years following. And the government is also reducing the proportion of non-permanent residents following a surge in arrivals after the pandemic. The immigration minister admitted in the fall,
Did we take too long to adjust? I think there's some responsibility there.
though immigration lawyers warn that the system is so overloaded that the new plan hinges on more than 2 million people already in Canada leaving or changing status over the next 2 years.
We've got this huge influx of people on Canadian soil expecting permanent residence who won't get it. And so for that reason, the number one question is, how can I stay here?
Among those asking this question, international students who are facing an intake cap that's shrinking by 10%. Work permit requirements are also becoming stricter, including for temporary foreign workers. And Canada is lowering its admissions targets for refugees and protected persons. As a result of these changes, Canada's population is on track to decrease marginally both this year and next. But with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's mass deportation pledge potentially leading to a surge in asylum claims, this country could face new pressures in the months ahead.
I think we're going to have to, as Canadians, put pressure on all political parties to respond in a rational and fair-minded manner that's consistent with Canada's historical obligations.
With the Liberals trying to regain Canadians' confidence that the system is under control, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre pledging to bring population growth below housing, healthcare, and job targets, immigration is shaping up to be a hot topic in this year's federal election. Morella?
That it is, Rachel. Thank you. Coming up, it pays to climb the corporate ladder.
They earn too much money.
A look at the lofty compensation for Canada's top CEOs. We're just 2 days into the new year, and Canada's top CEOs have already earned more than $62,000, more than the average worker earns in a year. CTV's Alex Carpa with more on the gap between the big money makers and most other Canadians.
Imagine making $13.2 million in a year. That's the average for Canada's top paid CEOs, and Winnipeggers can't believe it.
11 of that 13 is in the form of bonuses.
Really? Like, really? Wow. The richer get richer and the poor gets poorer?
We are struggling with guys, with house rent, with groceries, so I think that's unfair for us.
David McDonald says the gap between CEOs and the average Canadian worker's salary is massive, but he also points to another major gap. The list is mainly comprised of men.
Only 3 women out of 100, 3 CEOs, out of 100 that are women. There's actually more men named Scott on the list than there are women in total.
The annual report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives shows the highest paid Canadian CEO earned a jaw-dropping $68.5 million. That's this guy, Patrick Dovigi, the head of GFL Environmental Inc. Even at the low end, the head of Bombardier Recreational Products made almost $7 million in a year.
They earn too much money.
That has to stop somewhere.
Economist Colin Mang says CEO salaries will continue to grow.
With the way that we pay CEOs based on their performance and based on bonuses and stock options, you're going to continue to see CEO pay rise faster than the typical worker for the foreseeable future.
I think it's very unfortunate because with all the money that they do have, they could spend it in other ways that help Canada or even like other countries.
The report comes with a list of recommendations, including introducing a wealth tax for Canadians worth more than $10 million. And the report also recommends higher top marginal tax brackets. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Straight ahead, a blow to an endangered species. More grief for a southern resident killer whale. Off of Canada's west coast, a grieving mother orca is carrying out a heartbreaking ritual for the second time. She has lost another calf, which hits hard for an already ailing population. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson has that.
A grim start to the new year in the waters south of Vancouver Island.
Absolutely devastating news and beyond tragic.
Tahlequah, a mother orca, photographed carrying her lifeless calf that was confirmed dead on New Year's Eve.
It's very unfortunate. The anecdotal reports that were coming out over the last days were that neither the mother nor the calf were doing very well.
In 2018, a worldwide audience shared in the grief when the same mother carried her dead calf for 17 days, traveling more than 1,600 kilometers. Her cries captured on underwater camera.
That was real insight into the emotional lives of these animals. She's demonstrating clearly to the world that she's experiencing grief and loss.
4.5 years later, Tahlequah and the troubled southern resident killer whales are back in the spotlight as they struggle to survive. There are only 73 whales in this endangered population that travels between Alaska and California. Biologists blame marine traffic and a lack of salmon for the incredibly high calf mortality rate. Approximately 50% of these baby orcas don't survive.
These whales are swimming in noisy, highly polluted waters. We're really at the 11th hour for this population, and we have got to make different decisions now.
There is some good news researchers are celebrating. Another calf was born just days ago and appears to be okay. It'll be monitored closely by those who still believe this population can bounce back. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Team Canada was shooting for redemption at the World Juniors in Ottawa.
Here's a feed by the cross, Yellow scores!
A dramatic finish as Canada suffered a heartbreaking quarter-final loss to Czechia, 4-3, surrendering the winning goal in the final minute, meaning Canada will be shut out of a medal at the tournament. Straight ahead, a tribute to Johnny Cash. A man with a golden voice memorialized with a statue. Some of the greatest American heroes stand together at the U.S. Capitol. There are statues there for all to remember their legacies. Most are activists or politicians, but in 2024, a country singer made the mix. Here's CTV's Joy Malvin with the unveiling of Johnny Cash.
I hear the train a-comin', it's rolling around the bend.
His songs, part of the American culture, Johnny Cash sang about pride in his country, poverty and prison, of great suffering and loss.
I hurt myself today.
Now Johnny Cash is larger than life, an 8-foot-tall bronze statue of the singer-songwriter, unveiled here inside the U.S. Capitol, the first musician immortalized in this great hall.
When we forgot about the factory line worker, there was Johnny Cash singing about that fella who built a car one piece at a time.
Snoop Doggy Dogg put it a different way. He called Johnny Cash a real American gangster.
With a Bible in his hand and a guitar slung across his back, sculptor Kevin Cressy brought Cash to life.
Such a divided country right now. I think that to have Johnny Cash installed just, a couple month or two before one of the most contentious elections in our history, I love that his message is all about love.
His sister Joanne touching the statue for the first time, and daughter Carlene Carter says her dad would be humbled.
I think he would just be breathless over the fact that there's a statue of him in Emancipation Hall.
The son of a poor farmer who rose to fame, inducted into the Country and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Cash sang it all. His struggles with addiction, who gave voice to the downtrodden.
This man was a living redemption story, and we did and do love him so dearly.
As states like Arkansas replace their century-old statues, some depicting leaders with a racist past, in their place now, inspirational Americans and civil rights leaders, shoulder to shoulder now with the musical legend who stands tall in the heart of the U.S. Capitol. Joy Malvin, CTV News, Washington.
That's a wrap on the day. Thanks for sharing your time with us. For all of us here at CTV National News, good night. Heather will be back with you tomorrow.